I was thinking about writing a book on nutrition.
What are you going to call it? How to Lose 50 Pounds in 4 Weeks?
But let's face it, you need an ego to survive in the bitter world of professional wrestling. But the ego of Triple H runs wilder than Hulkamania during the 80s. This hasn't been restricted to the game's time as an in-ring performer either. If anything, becoming an executive has actually given Trips more of an inflated ego. From pushing himself to be the main attraction of modern-day WWE programming to burying careers of many adversaries, Triple H's ego knows no end. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 of the most egotistical Triple H power trips in WWE. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. Number 10. The WrestleMania 42 ad. Now, the new in-thing in pro wrestling is to create a cinematic movie-style trailer that builds hype and anticipation for the biggest show of the year, with WrestleMania 42 the latest to follow the trend. In keeping with the Las Vegas theme, the trailer for the men's side sees Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Brock Lesnar playing a game of poker with Paul Heyman watching from the sidelines. He's joined by Triple H, which would have been fine if that was the only involvement in the trailer, but it wasn't. He provides an overly dramatic voiceover for the trailer and is also the first person you see walking into the frame, effectively telling the viewer that he, the #1 executive, is more important to the WrestleMania branding than the people who will main event it. It's become tiresome to compare how Triple H handles WWE marketing to how Vince McMahon did. But put it this way, Vince was never anywhere near a WrestleMania trailer, not even on a rare occasion he was wrestling on it. Number 9, he must go over, even digitally. There is a legendary piece of Triple H lore dropped by an anonymous ex-WWE writer who was responsible for delivering scripts to the game during the Ruthless Aggression era, and he stated that his only response upon receiving the scripts was to say, "I'm effing going over." He usually was, and that extended to WWE's digital platforms. Ahead of the release of SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, THQ issued a memo to the members of the press covering the game which outlined a ban on sharing screenshots that featured Triple H in a vulnerable position. Fighting Spirit magazine and Power Slam both corroborated the hilarious message. The memo states, "Refrain from showing Triple H in a losing, defeated, defenseless position. THQ does not ask that anyone else on the WWE roster be protected in this manner. Magazines are only forbidden from printing screenshots of Triple H in a losing position." Accompanying this ridiculous memo is the long-standing rumor that Triple H must also be presented in a dominating position if WWE uploads a full match to its YouTube channel, with the biggest inkling of truth to this being his WrestleMania 12 match against the Ultimate Warrior, as despite the match being practically a squash in favor of the Warrior, the thumbnail actually shows Triple H setting him up for the pedigree. You can't make this up. Number 8. WWE 2K26. Now, although no further memos have been recorded following the SmackDown vs. Raw 2009 debacle, Triple H's video game arrogance hasn't entirely disappeared, as was quickly proven when 2K began unveiling the covers for 2K26. With 4 versions of the game in total, which is already one more than is traditional, Triple H appears on the cover of 3 of them. He's among the superstars featured on both the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars edition, while this year's Deluxe edition will solely focus on the game. Titled the King of Kings edition, the version will award players with the playable retro character models for both Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. But if it wasn't already egotistical enough to make yourself the centerpiece of one of the covers, this edition was also revealed through a cinematic trailer at WWE headquarters. The cherry on the top, during the countdown to the Royal Rumble, where CM Punk was confirmed as the cover star for the standard edition, the King of Kings cover was still higher than all of the others, despite it not even being the top edition. It's hardly coincidental at this point. Number 7. The SummerSlam 2012 Golf Clap. When a wrestler wrestles what they believe to be their retirement match, they'll traditionally stay in the ring after the final bell is rung, soaking in the applause and maybe even delivering a heartfelt promo. That's probably what Triple H was expecting to happen at SummerSlam 2012, but alas, he got nothing. Written as the heroic babyface going against a freshly returned Brock Lesnar, Triple H eventually submitted to the Chimera Lock, but the moment was more about the game than it was about the Beast incarnate. He stayed in the ring until long after Brock had gone backstage, with a solemn expression written across his face, pushing away the ringside doctor in a display of valor designed to show how much of a man he really is. The issue was that the crowd saw straight through his act. Those watching at home would have heard the crowd supposedly going wild for Hunter, which would have been believable had WWE not kept cutting to shots of the live audience, giving the most polite golf clap you've ever seen. Triple H eventually returned in time for WrestleMania 29, where he defeated Brock Lesnar because, of course, he did. Number 6. Keeping Randy Orton beneath him. The WWE fans were ecstatic when Randy Orton returned from his back injury in 2023 because they were excited to see how he would be booked now that Triple H held the pen. and for the most part, there's been not much to complain about. He played a post-WrestleMania 40 role in the Bloodline saga, he's challenged for multiple championships, and he enjoyed a brilliant rivalry opposite Kevin Owens before Owens' own career-threatening injury cropped up. However, there is one thing that the Viper will never achieve as long as Triple H is in charge: another World Championship. Currently, Orton and Trips are tied at 14 World Championships apiece, and with a cerebral assassin unable to wrestle again due to the health of his heart, it means that Randy Orton is strictly forbidden from winning either WWE or World Heavyweight Championships, such is the pettiness of his bruised ego. On a lesser note, don't expect Charlotte Flair to win another either. She too is currently at 14 recognized World Championship wins, just 7 short of shattering her father's actual record at 21. Number 5. Nixing the Kurt Angle feud. Throughout his career, Triple H was a repeat offender in the category of tease feuds that never went anywhere, with the most glaring example being his WrestleMania 31 stare-down with The Rock that hasn't even followed up 11 years later. However, it was uncommon for him to completely nix an angle before it could reach its planned conclusion, but that's exactly what happened when he entered a love triangle with Kurt Angle and Stephanie McMahon in 2000. Now, the reported ending was for Angle to leave the feud with Stephanie on his arm, but Triple H is said to have blocked this from happening due to its lack of believability. Triple H couldn't logically understand how a woman like Stephanie McMahon would possibly leave him for a man like Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medal or not, so he pitched a new idea that saw him dominate the rest of the storyline and keep Steph on his side. The Angle eventually won the WWF Championship, but from The Rock, not Triple H. At least he no longer had to embarrass himself with these fish-like kisses to Stephanie anymore. Number 4. Replacing Kevin Nash. Although WWE's version of the Summer of Punk flopped drastically when compared to Ring of Honor's, the scorching angle still turned Punk back into one of the hottest stars in the industry, until Triple H strode along and undid all the work that had gone into it. The game, who had entered semi-retirement by the summer of 2011, defeated Punk in the Night of Champions main event in a match that hadn't even been earmarked for him. Instead, it was Kevin Nash who was scheduled for that match after he returned at SummerSlam to attack Punk. However, comments made by Punk regarding Triple H and Stephanie McMahon wound him up so bad that he felt the need to get the upper hand in the scripted fight, as Nash detailed on his Click This podcast.
When I was supposed to wrestle CM Punk after I cost him the belt, he said something that pissed off Paul about something with him and Stephanie, and it wasn't on script, and it pissed Paul off. And Paul came back and basically said, "You're not wrestling Punk, I am. I'm beating that motherfucker." Like, he was that hot.
CM Punk eventually ended the year as WWE Champion, but it wasn't until deep into his reign that he was again classed as one of the biggest stars in WWE. Number 3. Always being on camera. Triple H is far from the first wrestling booker to plaster themselves across their company's output of content, but he's certainly the most deluded to do so. Since assuming control of WWE in 2022, he's grown steadily more increased with being in the spotlight. It began when his first presence was felt during post-show press conferences, which was fine, even if they weren't happening during the Vince McMahon regime. His involvement, though, quickly increased, with his existence during these presses being only to rattle off the latest records being shattered by WWE, as if announcing the record attendance during the show wasn't enough. These days, you can't watch a premium live event without seeing his face or hearing his voice. He recently voiced the cold open to the Royal Rumble rather than leaving it to the professionals. He's opened several events just to welcome the fans into what is the latest era of WWE is, and he was hilariously spotted charging through the corridors during WrestlePalooza to share the spotlight with Pat McAfee. For the worst, sending his wife to the ring at WrestleMania 40 to introduce the Triple H era. There's certainly a line that wrestling bookers must sit behind to keep their egos in check, but Paul Levesque can't even see it anymore. Number 2. All the burials. On screen and off screen as a wrestler and as an executive, Triple H has personally dug the graves for countless wrestling careers. He helped bury the odd career back when he ran WWE's locker room with the Click, with Shane Douglas being a key victim, but his biggest stranglehold over WWE came over his reign of terror. Between 2002 and 2005, he personally prevented anyone from surpassing him on the totem pole. He pinned Goldberg before Goldberg could pin him. He wrestled 2 hopeless matches against Scott Steiner, despite neither man being terrible between the ropes. He ended all hope of Rob Van Dam becoming a headliner in WWE. And worst of all, he pinned Booker T at WrestleMania 19 23 seconds after hitting the pedigree. Beyond this, Triple H on-screen buried John Cena, Brian Kendrick, and Paul London, among others. And while he eventually put his shovel to rest when he first switched spandex for a suit, he can't help himself anymore. LA Knight is a clear victim of his booking patterns in 2026, as are countless others. Even his NXT pet projects like Johnny Gargano weren't immune from his wretched creative on the main roster, which goes to show just how far his ego will stretch. And number 1, having smaller arms than Rene Dupree. No, Triple H being angry that his triceps weren't as defined as Rene Dupree isn't worse than that racist promo against Booker T, but it is a funnier story. Despite never being a key figure in WWE, Dupree still kept himself in immaculate shape, and as it turned out, he had more muscles than the game did, which caused the seamstress at the time to go into business for herself. The Frenchman told a hilarious story on the Top Rope Nation's podcast. "I'll tell you a story. I was walking backstage one day and there was two sisters that were seamstresses that had been there forever, and the names are Julie and Terry. So Terry said, 'Hey, we need to take your measurements.' And I asked if they were making me an outfit, and she said that the office needs them to take everyone's measurements. So her eyes get big as saucers, and she says, 'Oh my god, Renee, you're bigger than Hunter, and we can't have this.' So she literally wrote 2 or 3 inches less so that Hunter would be bigger than me. That's the effing mentality that you have to deal with. You think I'm bullshitting you? I'm not. I talked to my mentor, Rip Rogers, who told me that it's always been that way. And I say, well, that's just effing stupid. Rene Dupree never wrestled Triple H during his career, which is probably for the best. But there you have it, folks. 10 of the most egotistical Triple H power trips in WWE. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.